Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to
Something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nikolai Volkoff, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Arya.
And welcome to potentially my midlife crisis. Welcome to my 40th birthday, and welcome to episode number 136 of Something Else. Feast your ear holes on this week's episode as we take a look at Mid-South Wrestling and World Class Championship Wrestling from October 29th, 1983. I am the number one best-selling author in the world, depending on what list you look at this particular minute, Arya, and joining me, as always, is the Roderick Strong to my Adam Cole, baby. It's Trae. Trae, how you doing today?
Forgot to open my Sprite Zero before we started. So which one of us wrestles MJF at the pay-per-view?
I assume me, because it would just be weird if it was you.
I wonder if that's gonna turn into a three-way or something, but I don't know. We have other stuff to talk about besides current AEW storylines. With that that Adam Cole and MJF storyline went from being like the darling of everyone last summer to what the fuck is this last fall to now it's like, why the fuck are we still doing this?
It's like, why the fuck are we still doing this? And the rules are completely reversed.
Not even not even earned. I'm sorry. This has got to be a shoe-in for worst feud of the year, right?
I mean, didn't it win last year?
I don't know. It
I-
didn't get bad until right at the end of the year, so it might not have.
Yeah, but those awards like have an end of the year bias, a lot of times because you don't always remember the shit that happened at the beginning of the year, but you sure remember the shit at the end of the year. Like that year that fucking Eric Bischoff and Teddy Long was the worst match of the year. And don't get me wrong, that shit was bad, but I'm pretty sure if you go through 2005, you could find a worse match than the 2 minutes of Eric Bischoff versus Teddy Long.
Just reminded me, I saw a tweet like yesterday that made me laugh. I just found out about recency bias, and it's my favorite thing ever.
It's shocking how that works. By the way, and saying this to both promote the Thursday show and also to remind you, um, we're not only doing Smoky Mountain Wrestling on Thursday, it's Halloween day or Halloween night, whenever the hell you want to listen to it. We're also going to be reviewing the ECW Monster Mash Battle Royal on the Thursday show this week. So,
Please,
if you want,
please remind me of that the day of, just in case.
I'll remind you on Thursday, even though we'll tape the show Tuesday.
Yeah, remind me Tuesday too. Worst feud of the year was MJF versus the Devil. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because Dave changed like when when the awards span, because it used to be like December to November, but he changed
Yeah.
it to the calendar year. But I still think most of the people who voted before Adam Cole was even revealed as the devil.
I mean, it was already like going a bad way.
Oh yeah. And do you hear this in the microphone?
No, must have good
Okay.
noise reduction.
Well, what I was trying to do was hold up and flip through the only physical copy of my book that currently exists, kind of. Because yes, 40 Years of Pay-Per-View, Book 1, 1985 to 1990, is officially on sale due to quote-unquote popular demand, because surprisingly, more than one person has requested this. I am going to make physical copies of the book available. However, I don't want to have to pay money in order to release my own book. So it's going to cost $20, which is, in my opinion, way too much. But if you're out there, I appreciate and love the idea that you might want to spend that much money on my book. If you do, it's there, it's available. Um, but yeah, I have my copy, my physical copy of my book sitting right here in my hand, which you can buy on the Kindle tomorrow, or actually yesterday as you're listening to this, for $5. It's a good number, five. You know, it's how much Subway used to charge for foot-long subs. Now they charge like $7. But
Probably
just
probably not gonna spring for the physical copy, but I do have a Kindle Scribe, so next time I see you in Meat Space, you can still sign my book for me.
sounds good. So just to give people a small preview, Trey, pick a number between 6 and 412.
77.
97? Let's see.
77.
Oh, I'm sorry. Page 77, WrestleMania IV, March
It's a
27th,
bad show.
1988. And actually, it's funny because this is one of my favorite intros that I wrote. By the way, the entire book, every pay-per-view from 1985 to 1990, along with all the backstage news and drama, every time Vince tried to keep Crockett off pay-per-view, every time the NWA changed their booking committee, every time Vince tried to bully the cable companies, and yes, the time the cable companies bullied him right back. Um, it makes for a fascinating read if I do say so myself. But WrestleMania IV, March 27th, 1988, live from Atlantic City, New Jersey. March 27th, 1988 hosted one of the greatest shows in wrestling that year. A brand new star who helped carry his company for the next decade was born, as he showed that he wasn't just a flash in the pan, but someone unique, colorful, vibrant, and talented. Plus, two of the best tag team matches you'll ever see on TV at the time, and a pair of gimmick matches that, while they could have been better, gave you a chance to not only see legends but upcoming stars. All this in front of the hottest crowd of the year, making the company look like the hot in promotion at the time. This is the story of the other show held that day.
I knew where it was going with the first sentence, and it just got better and better.
Yeah. I seriously love that. I think I sent that to you when I originally wrote it. And yeah, it's just WrestleMania 4. It's funny because that was one of those shows that we had a tape of as a kid. It was taped off the pay-per-view by our cousin, and
Yeah.
we ended up with our cousin's, tape collection. And it was like one of those shows that I just watched so many times as a kid because, and you end up loving it. And it's not until years later you're like, oh my God, this is not a very good show at all.
Yeah, it's really not. There's like, I don't know. Some of the Savage matches are like pretty good, but they don't get enough time. But like the main event is pretty decent, but it's not a good show. I watched it like it was one of the tapes that I could rent, so I watched it a couple of times back in the day. And as a little kid, it's fun because it's two tapes and it's so many matches, and that's all you care about. And
Yep.
then as an adult, you actually watch the matches, and yeah.
It's funny because as a kid, I hated talk during wrestling. I hated the interviews. I didn't like primetime wrestling because, Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan are just, taking me away from the wrestling that I want to watch. Just give me wrestling. I was that fan that Vince Russo hated because I wanted a 2-hour headlock, god damn it. But yeah, it's because like weirdly, and I think who knows, this might be why I love the Attitude Era so much. It's like I ended up, you know, growing out of that at the same time the Attitude Era occurred. So it's like, who knows if I would have become that fan in 1998, we may not be doing this podcast right now. Because I could have just said
Yeah.
fuck pro wrestling in 1998 and, obsessed over something else.
I have the ADHD, so I have trouble like paying attention to something for an extended period, even if it's something I'm into. So to me, a talking segment is like, oh God, something I don't have to focus on for a few minutes,
Mhm.
and I can let my mind wander a little bit.
Did you watch, I forget who the host was, but that show that had Vince Russo, Maven, Charlie Caruso, Phil Mushnick, and someone else whose name apparently escapes me on talking about how evil Vince McMahon is?
No, I didn't.
I didn't watch it, but I've heard enough people talk about it that it was quite the train wreck,
Just the people involved. It sounds like a train wreck.
shockingly. Well, we're going to talk about some train wrecks and some bad shows today because 1 year before I was born to the day, Mid-South and World Class did not put forth their best efforts this week. I,
No, no. This was not the best time I've ever had watching shows.
no, it really wasn't. So we're going to start with Mid-South like we always do, October 29th, 1983, from the Irish McNeil Boys Club in Shreveport, Louisiana. So the past 2 weeks, what's happened on this show is Magnum TA won the North American title. And what we saw after that on TV was Magnum defeating King Kong Bundy. So that's the last thing we've seen. Now let's go to the intro of this week's show where Boyd Pierce, looking very somber, but as somber as a human being could look in a bright orange suit, is there with Bill Watts and the North American title. Now this is a bit of a lengthy intro, but we're cutting it up into several parts here. Let's go to the first part right now.
From this week's edition of Mid-South Wrestling Television Network, I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, and our guest commentator, Cowboy Bill Watts, has just returned from an important meeting of the Board of Directors of Mid-South Wrestling in Tampa, Florida. We have some shocking news and a landmark decision that has been made, and you'll understand it when we show you some of the things, and Bill will explain them as they come up. But I want to tell you, in over 30 years of announcing professional wrestling and being connected with this wonderful sport, 9 years right here on national TV and being with Mid-South Wrestling ever since its inception at the only host that it's ever had. I want to tell you something. Through those years, I have been with organizations, with federations, associations, and alliances, but I've never found one yet that had the guts, courage, or intestinal fortitude, whatever adjective you might want to add, to really carry out something, to regulate the rules and regulations of this great sport. And you all know that in our wonderful world of professional wrestling, we have contestants that goes right to the line of breaking those rules. Some of them step over and are reprimanded, but something needs to be done with teeth. And Mid-South Wrestling, my friends, has never forgotten you fans who pay and buy tickets in the arenas wherever you attend the matches, and you fans that open up your homes week after week to give us the great ratings that we have on all of our stations. Mid-South Wrestling knows that you're the reason and the backbone of their success. They'll never let you down, and when they feel like you have been cheated, they intend to do something about it. Bill?
Well, thank you, Boyd. I think you've said it all. The whole thing went back to 2 weeks ago, and the North American title that you see here is the bone of contention. That first of all, and must be clear-cut, and has always been established that no champion makes his own matches. All championship matches must be sanctioned by Mid-South Wrestling. 2 weeks ago, Hacksaw Butch Reed came and said he would wrestle on TV and defend the North American title. He already had a Mid-South tag title match that he and Neidhart had challenged Dugan and Magnum TA. It had already been signed. Grizzly got the match sanctioned by Mid-South. Charlie Lay, he called him long distance in Tampa, and Charlie said, sure, if he wants to wrestle in 2 title matches, that's fine. But then he also stipulated that he would let the people pick the opponent. And let's join in, as Reeser Boughton was having a runoff, there was 4 opponents that were brought out in front of the people. Darso, TA, Dugan, and the Dog. And it was very close between Dugan and the Dog, and Reeser Boughton had a runoff between them. And let's see just who the people selected to be the opponent for the North American title.
So Trey, do you remember around this time frame the famous story in Stampede Wrestling where Ed Whalen quit on live TV because of the angle with Bad News Allen and Archie the Mongolian Stomper?
Oh yeah, it vaguely rings a bell.
I legitimately thought that Boyd Pierce was about to pull an Ed Whalen and quit on the fucking show. He's never like he was so upset and like as this is going on, I can't even tell you why. My best guess is somebody must have been talking shit about how bad the booking was, and either this week or next week, Bill Watts goes off on a similar rant, which makes you think that they've heard some criticism lately. But Boyd Pierce is just like he is the saddest person I've ever seen in an orange suit, and I didn't think it was possible to be sad in an orange suit.
I gotta tell you, I almost pulled an Ed Whalen and quit the show during this segment.
Well, so I always laughed at the Mid-South Board of Directors. Mid-South Wrestling, which, is Oklahoma, Louisiana, Mississippi, parts of Texas. The Mid-South Board of Directors have to have their meetings in Tampa, Florida.
Yeah, what the fuck
You
is
know,
that?
what was that?
What the fuck is that about? Like, why is the Mid-South board in Tampa?
I don't know. Maybe they're giving them a good tax break or something.
Uh, I guess. Yeah.
Maybe he went to Eddie Graham to find a way out of this angle, I guess. But
Uh,
So Watts recaps what happened 2 weeks ago. Butch Reed wanted to put up the North American title, and he said he's going to let the fans decide. And this is like it gets weird, and they're double talking over themselves here because the angle was, and they bring it up here, that the champion has the final right of refusal over their title defenses. However, they then say that no champion can choose who they want to wrestle. Wasn't that basically what you're doing by saying that they have the last right of refusal? Like, okay, they're not saying, okay, I'm only going to wrestle Bill Tab, but, if they say, well, we want you to wrestle Dog, Butch Reed can just go, well, I don't want to wrestle the Junkyard Dog, and I got final right of refusal.
he wanted to wrestle Bill Rathke, but he was in the shower.
He wanted to wrestle George Weingroff's massive penis. Um,
So if it
hmm?
if a champion can't make his own matches, then what the fuck was all this bullshit in the first place? Like, wasn't
I
this all Reed's idea that he's gonna have like four people to pick from, and the fan like isn't that still him picking four people to pick from? And I was so fucking angry by the end of this shit.
and I don't even know. So they show the runoff election where Dog beat Duggan. And then we go back and forth a little bit. I'm not going to keep playing these little 30-second snippets, but basically, they showed Dog beating the winner of the election, but then Butch Reed cutting his promo saying that he's only going to defend the title against Magnum TA for whatever reason. And then we saw the finish of the match where Magnum TA won the title. Now I'll be honest, and I'm sure, you know, it, I'm sure I'm not, speaking out of turn coming up with this thought here, but I'm fairly certain they just changed their mind on what the hell they wanted to do. Because, I mean, I thought 2 weeks ago was a pretty interesting episode where, Butch Reed and Magnum TA basically flip-flopped their titles. And now they changed their mind. They're like, that might not have been the best idea. So let's go back and change the past. And you know, and it's like they had to come up with some way to do it. But it gets better because Magnum TA is the North American champion as of the next segment that we're going to play here. However, he doesn't quite make it to today as North American champion. So with that, let's go back to Bill Watts, and this goes for a little bit, and we're going to go. They're going to They're going to send it some promos. They're going to come back to Bill Watts. The whole thing is a little under 5 minutes, and then we will recap it all when we get done finishing that. And hopefully by then Trey's built up a good head steam of anger, because I can smell the smoke. I can tell he's getting ready to snap, and hopefully in a good way. All right, let's go to Bill and Boyd.
Hacksaw Butch Reed lodged a protest saying that he should have been disqualified, which would have kept the title. That, in a matter of fact, it was apparent that he was deliberately trying to get disqualified by jumping off on TA, and the Junkyard Dog dove in for the save. Mid-South demanded the tapes be sent to Tampa. They were reviewed, and it should have been a disqualification. In the meantime, Magnum TA, the champion, was again challenged publicly on television by Nikolai Volkoff, a Russian who has just been bragging, and it puts your very patriotism to a test. And he challenged Magnum TA for New Orleans last week, challenged him to either put the title up, and if he couldn't beat him for the title, he'd leave the United States. And Magnum couldn't resist it, but again, he didn't have the right to make and accept that. The only people that accept it is the matchmaker or the Mid-South representatives. Let's watch that interview.
Now, Magnum TA, I have this match with you now, but let's go make this match. Put your title there. I want to see if you are coward enough, if you have enough guts to come there and face me for the title. Let's take, winner take it all. Let me tell you, I promise, I give you my word of honor. If I don't squash you, look at this here, Russian missile. If they don't squash you, knock you down. If I don't take the title away from you, I will leave the United States. I will leave this country. I will never swap my face like here.
Well, you heard his challenge, and you heard what he said. If he can't win that title, he'll leave the country.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. First of all, this is the greatest accomplishment of my wrestling career right here. Nobody ever believed that I'd beat Butch Reed to begin with for this North American title. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do all the people in New Orleans, all the people in the United States a favor to shut up that loudmouth Russian. It only takes 3 seconds, Volkoff, for me to hit you with that belly-to-belly suplex and put your shoulders down the mat. 3 seconds. And that can happen to anybody on a given day, as I proved right here when I won this title with the fair officiating, my good old JYD. That's what it takes. You got to have good officiating. You got to have all the things going for you at the right time to come out ahead. But I'm going to do that right there in New Orleans. I'm going to put my title up on the line.
As you see, Volkoff's ridiculing the United States and their athletes. Magnum TA stood up as best he could. But last week in New Orleans, Nikolai Volkoff defeated Magnum TA and carried off the North American title belt. However, Mid-South, although sometimes the wheels of justice grind slow, they do grind. And Charlie Lay and them called me down, and I was at an important meeting this week. But first, before we hear their decision, let's hear Volkoff in his braggadocious interview about now being the North American champion.
Hej Sloveni, hej ruski narod, ja sam došao ovdje, ja sam pobjedio amerikanskog wrestla, ja sam pobjednik, ja sam the champion. I come here and I tell my Russian friends that I come here because American coward athletes, they didn't show up in the Russian Olympics because they were scared. They were scared to face better and stronger and superior Russian athletes, even say better looking Russian athletes. That's why I come here and I fight the best American, the champion, and I beat them, and now I am the new American North champion. And I go change this, not North America, but the Russian champion, because we are the best. And I hear the Russian wrestler, they go hit in America. We will try to come close to this belt.
And now for the decision, and I think it takes a tremendous amount of courage for Mid-South. But Mid-South has decided that, first of all, no champion has ever been allowed to make his own championship matches. That would be ridiculous. Then you could have a champion not giving an opponent that was worthwhile a title shot the title. He could be picking easy opponents. Or he could be ridiculed into matches before a guy had proven his worth, just like Magnum TA. And without a doubt, Volkoff is probably a heavier gun at this point in his life than Magnum TA. So they cannot make their own matches. The second and most important thing is that the stipulation was that the fans could pick the contender for that original championship match here on TV, and they picked the Junkyard Dog, and then Butch Reed used it to ridicule the fans in Mid-South, and they're not going to stand for it. So the decision has been the North American title has been stripped from Mr. Russia. Mr. Volkoff it's been stripped. It was not a sanctioned match. Magnum TA did not win it. That was not a sanctioned match. The title reverts back to Hacksaw Butch Reed, but there will be a sanctioned match with one special ingredient. That match will be coming up. The match will be against the man the people picked, the Junkyard Dog, and Mid-South will send a special troubleshooting referee, a main wrestler. We have not been informed who he is. but he will appear here at match time to referee that match, and that final outcome will be who is the North American champion. And we'll be back with that right after these words from the Mid-South.
Okay. There is a lot to unpack. First of all, I'm sad that we don't have the local shows because obviously that Nikolai Volkoff promo and the Magnum TA response, it was obviously a local promo that unfortunately we didn't see last week. And personally, I would have loved making fun of that awful Nikolai Volkoff promo where you can understand 90% of what he was saying. He could have been speaking Russian for all we know, or it could have just been a Nikita Koloff thing where you just speak with a heavy enough accent. People will assume that you're speaking another language. But either way, so Volkov challenged Magnum TA to a match for the North American title, where Volkov lost. He would have had to leave. He would have to leave the United States. So they were going to have to revoke his work visa and deport him as if he would have lost the match. Now Volkov won the match, and we heard the very happy promo he cut as champion. In fact, you've never seen anybody so happy to be the champion, and I'm really sad that what ended up happening because I would have loved the happy, Nikolai Volkoff as North American champion gimmick here. What say you, Trey?
Just to put it in context for listeners of the Oh My God cast, Nikolai Volkoff was even less coherent than Sal Balomo.
Is that possible?
Amazed. I didn't think it was possible, but I understood maybe 5 words of everything Nikolai said in this whole mess.
Now, here's a question, and I was just thinking
Okay.
about this just now. Let's say TA had beaten Volkov, and they used their power to somehow rescind his work visa and deport him back to Russia. Now, when they reverse the decision, would they have found a way to reinstate his work visa and bring him back into the country?
I would think that the commission will be obliged to overturn the result of that match and make it a no contest. So, yeah. I think we're better bookers than Ernie Ladd was at this point.
I personally would have loved, and this is just me being a WWF fan, so I wanted the skits here. I would rather have had this TA Volkoff match be the TV match we saw last week, have TA win, and thus you get the skits of them deporting Nikolai Volkoff, and then this week have to bring him back.
So much potential. So much potential.
Why were we not put in charge of a territory? But,
the linchpin of all of this is that Reed filed a protest that he should have been disqualified and therefore he should have the title returned to him. Oh my fucking God. God, this makes me so angry. Okay, on the list of fucking things that I hate, one of them is the champion retains on a DQ. And I know this goes back to fucking Edouard Carpentier and Luthez in 1957 and that whole thing with the NWA title. That's when they started implementing that rule. But it's like, it's just another one of those things that's just like a built-in way for uninventive bookers to fuck people. And by people, I mean to fuck the fans out of like a proper resolution. So in my territory, my imaginary territory where I'm implementing the unified rules of professional wrestling, it was like if the champion was disqualified, that would be an automatic, like the title is held up pending a direct rematch.
In my territory, you would follow the actual rules of wrestling, but then there just wouldn't be disqualifications and countouts. But the key is the wrestlers themselves can't flagrantly violate the rules of wrestling. And, that's one of the things that just get rules. And now I'm going to go rant about modern day wrestling. Like the rules get ignored until we have to enforce them. And that's the one thing I hate about modern day wrestling. It's like, how can you ever have a non-decision in a match when people are able to do whatever the fuck they want for the first 20 minutes? Why are the rules now in effect? And by the way, TNA was doing this 20 years ago, and I bitched about it then. So it's like it's not just I'm mad about modern day wrestling thing. I was mad 20 years ago too when it was being done. If you're gonna have just not have no rules, just have no rules. Rant over. So the Butch Reed thing. And I giggled because of something that's going to happen on this show and has been happening the last couple of weeks. Because the last couple of weeks we mentioned about Lanny Poffo diving off the top rope for the moonsault. And my theory was that no one told Poffo what was going on or what the rules were in this area. And Poffo's not on the show this week, but he is on the show next week. So tune in next week to see if somebody smartened Lanny Poffo up.
I bet he still does the moonsault.
So because champions are not allowed to make their own matches now, even though we just allowed Butch Reed with the say-so of the board of directors, because Charlie Lay allowed it. The Louisiana State Athletic Commission allowed it. However, now we're not allowing it. So because they did not live up to the original stipulations that the most popular wrestler would get the belt, that means that the Butch Reed Magnum TA match, for all intents and purposes, did not happen, which means the Magnum TA title loss to Nikolai Volkoff did not happen, which means Butch Reed is still the North American champion.
And nobody got fucked here worse than Nikolai Volkoff.
Yeah. Because what the fuck did
He didn't have
Volkoff
anything to do with this bullshit.
Yeah. Volkoff was playing by the rules. He came in, he was like, hey, I want a title match. And the champion that we were aware of agreed to put the title on the line. And then Volkoff beat him. And I'm assuming he beat him fairly clean, or else they would have brought that up too. But yeah. So Nikolai Volkoff got fucked here out of his rightful championship.
And they returned the title to the guy who lost.
Yes.
Because he still lost the fucking match. Like the whole linchpin of the argument was that he should have lost a different way that would invalidate the title change.
Yes. But much like how Triple H did not lose the WWF title to Chris Jericho in 2000, Butch Reed did not lose the North American title to Magnum TA here in 1983. And I'm actually curious what Butch Reed's been up to in the past couple of weeks since that title loss. By the way, this show was taped on October 26th. And actually, and I guess I'm not really sorry to report this, but Butch Reed had 2 matches since the last TV taping, and he won both of them. He won ghetto street fights against Jim Duggan and Junkyard Dog. It doesn't say how he won the ghetto street fight against Junkyard Dog, just that he won. So
presumably you can win a ghetto street fight any way you want to.
I don't know what the rules are to a ghetto street fight. I'm assuming
there are no rules in a ghetto street fight.
But okay, that's another thing. There has to be a rule because how else will you win? The way of winning is a rule.
You remember, this is a fucking deep cut. Do you remember the Diamond Dallas Page, Buff Bagwell last man standing match at Sold Out 2000?
I haven't watched in a while, but yes.
I clearly remember that match being billed as no rules, no referee. And there were both rules and a referee.
Mm-hmm.
It should be. It should. There should just be like, I don't know. You have that. If you advertise something as no rules, no referee, you should just have the guys come out and fight until one guy gets tired of beating on the other, or the police get called, I guess.
Pretty much, But so yeah, now Butch Reed is champion again, and he must defend the title against Junkyard Dog with a special referee. And sadly, the special referee is not going to be Junkyard Dog again. He, and as we've learned from watching TNA as well, even if you are a special referee, you cannot be a special referee for your own match.
So unfair.
Yes, indeed. But by the way, I'm going to rewind 30 seconds here, not 30 seconds, actually a couple minutes to when you brought it up. Having a DQ or a count out in a title match, it brings up what I've always said. Like if wrestling was real, why wouldn't Butch Reed just punt the referee in the balls as soon as the bell rang?
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And we'll actually get to that here in a second, because it's the opening match. It's North American champion / one half of the tag team champions, Butch Reed versus Junkyard Dog. And first of all, Junkyard Dog has his old theme song back. Another One Bites the Dust is back. It is so much better than Atomic Dog. I was surprised he had it as long as he did, because in my memory, when I watched this years ago, he had it for a couple weeks. But he had it like 6 months.
That honestly was like the only good thing to come out of this whole scenario was Another One Bites the Dust is back.
Well, then we get our special guest referee, who is 3-time World's Heavyweight Champion Dusty Rhodes. And a woman in the crowd was so surprised and so excited that she punched the person next to her, which I marked out for.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. It's funny.
So they allegedly had a referee shirt in the ring for Dusty, and Dusty didn't even bother putting it on. So I'm thinking either they did not buy a shirt nearly big enough for Dusty, because even in 1983, when he wasn't yet, the proportions he would reach in a couple of years, he was still a very large man.
Yes.
So he didn't wear his referee shirt. He just wore a regular shirt. And so the match begins, and Butch Reed is protesting it. Now the bell has rung, and Butch Reed steps out of the ring because he's going to walk out because he's pissed off, and Dusty starts counting him, so Butch Reed gets back in the ring. If this was real, why didn't you just walk off?
Indeed.
So it's funny because being a pro wrestling referee is something I think a lot of people, both in and out of the business, take for granted, because to be a good referee, people just have to not notice you. And that's the best part of any referee, is if you don't get noticed during the match. And it's one of those things that, much like being an announcer, it feels like something that anybody can do. Like, I can get down and count to 3. What the hell? Well, Dusty Rhodes, who's been wrestling since the early to mid 60s at this point, he gets down. Junkyard Dogs is a small package. Dusty Rhodes gets down to close enough to where he can check the shoulders. He counts 1, he counts 2. Butch Reed kicks out, and Dusty is so close to it that Dog basically has to roll over the top of Dusty to get back to his feet. And obviously that was not a planned ref bump, because Dusty just got right back up. I did like how Watts brought up, 1 year ago, how Duggan was in a gorilla costume and led to Junkyard Dog leaving the territory for 90 days. But then he just threw salt over the situation, because he's just like, and now Junkyard Dog and Hacksaw Duggan are really close friends. It's like, you really just skimmed over a lot of stuff there, Bill.
Some missing steps there.
Yeah. The finish sees Dog come off the ropes and collide with Dusty. Reed goes up top, but Junkyard Dog gives him the flare flip off the top rope. This brings out Jim Neidhart, who tripped Dog and then gets in the ring, but Dusty goes back up. He knocks Neidhart back out of the ring, and finally Dog pins Reed with a thump to officially win the championship. So after all that, no Magnum TA, no Nikolai Volkoff. We're back to the Junkyard Dog as your North American champion.
Nothing this match. This was a match that happened. If you're a chinlock enthusiast, you might get something out of this. It's the end.
I'll be honest, and I'm saying this as somebody who's like, we're in the last, 9 months or so of Junkyard Dog, maybe 10 months in his territory. Like, and I've been watching this for 2 years. I'm pretty sick of him at this point. It's like, I know it's a big deal when he leaves, but I'm ready for him to leave the territory. Um, this whole time we've been watching, and I get he's the number one guy. We got to build things around him. But with one exception, every title change since we've been watching has been someone to dog, dog to someone, someone to dog. Dog has always been that every other title reign and the only exception was the Bob Roop to Ted DiBiase one, because Bob Roop lost it on a house show to Ted DiBiase. Actually, no, I fucked that one up there, because it was DiBiase lost the title to Bob Roop, and then Bob Roop lost on a house show to Junkyard Dog. So it was the DiBiase to Bob Roop change. It was the only time this entire time we've had a non to or from Junkyard Dog title change in the going on 2 years we've been watching this show.
That's exhausting.
Yeah. And it's like we've gone through a lot of dog. I know things are going slow, and this is part of the reason why my former co-host hated this stuff. But even though we're going slow, we've gone through a lot of Junkyard Dog storylines since the start here. And I'm sorry, it's starting to become time to wrap things up with this guy. But
yeah, well, we've got another 10 months or so to enjoy.
And then we'll start watching WWF from 84 and be like,
I quit.
The fucking missing link will be on the show too. Speaking of which, Max was out next without General Skandor Akbar to go one-on-one with Magnum TA, the not North American champion, the never North American champion. TA won with a belly-to-belly as Max was diving off the top rope. I wrote nothing wrong with the match. I was just waiting for something notable to happen. And they note that Dr. Death Steve Williams is in his last semester in college, but we already knew that from a few months ago. And then I was watching next week's show. So I just watched this week's show and next week's show back to back so I get it done. And I was halfway through the show when it suddenly hit me that Max came off the top rope for the finish. And thus he should have been immediately disqualified. And thus TA would still win, but TA does not have a pinfall win over Max. He has a disqualification win over Max.
God damn it, they're going to take another win away from TA. Man cannot catch a break.
He can't really take the win away because, he's still the winner either way. But, yeah.
Invalidate his pinfall victory.
Exactly. Maybe he gets paid less for that.
This match did nothing to improve my mood, by the way.
I'm shocked that a match with Max didn't make you jump for joy.
No, did not move me.
Well, someone who's about as happy as you are was Nikolai Volkoff. And Nikolai Volkoff, who I wrote the decidedly less happy Nikolai Volkoff, with a big giant bag of wheat, versus, has Reeser introduced him, former North American champion Jerry Oates. Reeser was really rubbing it into Nikolai here, wasn't he?
Oh, that's good.
The fact that Nikolai didn't kick Reeser's ass is just shocking to me. Now,
yeah,
I was not being facetious when I said that Nikolai Volkoff brought a giant bag of wheat to the ring. He brought a giant bag of wheat to the ring. And you might be wondering why he brought a giant bag of wheat to the ring. And thankfully, we have geopolitical Bill Watts to tell us why he brought a giant bag of wheat to the ring. let's go to geopolitical Bill Watts.
What you see, a bag of American wheat laying there. The Russian, during the commercial break, was making quite a protest over it. Former North American champion Jerry Oates. The Russian is going just like the dreaded juggernaut Russia's known for. Number one, Russia wrestling is the national sport. They're at it as kids. It's almost like being professional there as a child even. And that Russian is so upset over being taken, the title being taken. He walks in with a bag of wheat, American wheat. He said, it's just like America. You sell the wheat. Then when something doesn't go your way, you take the deal back. He said, well, Magnum TA sold his soul trying to stand up to the United States and wasn't man enough. He was a coward, just like all the United States wrestlers who failed to even show up for the Russian Olympics. He came here, he won the title fair and square, and then we've taken it away from him. Just like the United States tries to use wheat in the grain deals. And he told me, he said, one of these days, the United States will have nothing. Russia now has 60% of the world. It's going to get the oil in the Far East. It's going to get the minerals in Africa. And then pretty soon, we'll be having to give the wheat to stay alive, the Canadian wheat and all the other wheat, that they'll control it. And this is a symbolic protest by the Russian, that bag of wheat.
So, what the hell is this thing about the wheat?
Okay.
What?
I tried to piece this together, and I could not figure out exactly what would have been stuck in Watts's craw about this in October 1983. In 1979, when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, the U.S. put a grain embargo against the Soviet Union. That embargo was lifted in 1981 when Ronald Reagan took office. All I could find about 1983 was that it was the year the U.S. and the Soviet Union made an agreement that the Soviets would buy so much American grain by the end of fiscal year 1986, which they failed to do. And at that point, I lost interest in reading about international trade agreements over grain.
There's two things that Bill Watts loves to do, and he got to do them both in this match. It's run down foreign countries and talk about amateur wrestlers. And like, I'm shocked that Nikolai Volkoff isn't in this territory until the end of time, just so Watts could keep talking about those two things.
I'm sure he'll find a way.
And I got a question for you. In 1990, when Sergeant Slaughter began turning his back on America, his first feud, and shockingly, this was supposed to turn him into a top heel, but his first feud was with a babyface Nikolai Volkoff, and his big complaint was that the fans are now accepting this commie asshole, as, an American, and they're cheering for him. Why would you cheer for this man? Who do you think Watts would have sided with in 1990 WWF?
What a fascinating question.
I only ask the best questions.
Yeah, I think he would just be in a glass case of emotion over that. He wouldn't know what to do.
He might be silent. The only way to silence motherfucker. Volkoff won with his backbreaker, which I have decided to rename the Sack of Wheat.
There you go.
And we'll see how that goes. And then one of those times where I thought I was watching the wrong show because Iceman Parsons showed up on my television set, and I wasn't yet watching World Class.
Okay.
Iceman.
So I knew that we were in for something when We Are Family started playing, and it was King Parsons. And I know this is a strange observation, but I've been watching this show for 5 months now, give or take. Everyone who has had music on this show has something in common.
Really?
Yeah.
What would that be?
The melanin in their skin. They are all they all have a lot more melanin in their systems than you or I do.
Yes, they do.
It's Dog, it's Kamala, and now King Parsons.
Which is funny because Butch Reed does not have a theme song at all.
I know. What's up with that?
And well, I guess he's now the former champion. You would think they would have broken out the big bucks for that one. So
Can we
anyway,
get
he's taking on Tom Stanton's white guy afro. Um, now we've noted in the past that they will put nicknames in quotations. Um, and here they put both the Iceman and Kings in quotations, and they didn't even put it in the same quotation. They did two separate quotations for Iceman and King.
Well, because he's not the Iceman King. He's the Iceman, comma, King Parsons.
Next week, it's going to be Dusty and Dugan versus Reed and Neidhart for the tag titles, and Parsons won with she calls that the rear view.
This is dumb and pedantic, but what am I here for if not to be dumb and pedantic? I'm very specific about names and results listings. I don't write the nickname. I just write like the actual ring name. And so I always his name is King Parsons.
Jim Neidhart and Bobby Duncombe Sr. versus
One
Marty
second.
O.
1 second, because I have to make a comment. I wrote one comment about this match. They fucked up a body slam.
I did not notice that.
Probably the first thing you ever learned how to do that involves you picking up and moving another person's body. They fucked it up.
I somehow did not see that. I have to go back now, and I X'd out of the video, so I'll have to go back and watch it after the show.
It's not worth it.
And by the way, they give a different name to she calls that the rear view next week, but I will still continue to call it she calls that the rear view.
And I will continue to call it the butt as God intended.
Yes. So mismatched tag team action up next. Jim Neidhart, who is one half of the tag team champions, and Bobby Duncombe Sr., who even though Bobby Duncombe Jr. doesn't wrestle for another decade or so, he will still always be Bobby Duncombe Sr. to go 2-on-2 with Marty Oates and Mike Bond. Yes, Marty Oates, whose relative Jerry Oates was wrestling earlier in the show. They did not team up together this week, nor did Jim Neidhart team with his tag team championship partner on this show. And this was fucking weird. I don't know. I think if Ernie Ladd wasn't on his way out already, we should have really petitioned Charlie Lay and the Mid-South Board of Directors to replace the Booker, because the new angle is that Jim Neidhart believes that Jim Duggan has lice and fleas in his beard. And Jim Duggan did not deny this. He just said that he is an American and will do what he wants.
Okay. I didn't quite catch that. I wrote that Watts had a weird ramble about Jim Duggan's personal hygiene.
Yes.
Look, most of the wrestling on this program is usually pretty inconsequential. But this show, in particular, seemed designed to spite me.
Why is that?
And just there is like one good move on this whole show, and it's in the main event. Or I'm sorry, the final expiration of time match.
Well, I mean, it is the last match, so some people would argue that it is the main event.
That's not, though, and I'll fight people over that because that's dumb.
Neidhart pinned Bond with a Samoan drop. But then we get either the main event or the expiration of time match, however you want to look at it. Doug Vines versus King Cobra. So both Cobra and Parsons are kings. Do you think they should feud or should they be a tag team?
Yeah, they should tag team, double kings.
I wrote Parsons pinned Vines, but that did not happen. Cobra pinned Vines with the head scissors, and everyone, including Watts and Boyd, were surprised that they actually had a finish.
That head scissors cradle was fucking sweet. I'm like a sucker for a nifty cradle. I really like that. That was the only thing that I liked on this show.
It took to the last few seconds.
Yeah.
And hey, they say it's good to end the show on a high note, I guess. And I got to tell you, Watts and Boyd were in a much happier mood closing the show than they were when they were opening the show.
Yeah, well, because it was over.
So Mid-South was bad. World class. Oh man, world class. Let's go to Bill Mercer and see if we can decipher the intro of this week's show.
World class championship wrestling from the most renowned wrestling arena in the world, the Sportatorium, here in Dallas, Texas. I'm Bill Mercer. Great to have you with us, and a tremendous main event on our card. It features Kevin Von Erich, and his opponent from the Freebirds, Terry Gordy. That's a fantastic main event. And we've got a lot of other excitement too, plus our first bout, which is one of our encore or rematches. And that one features a six-man tag team. Kamala and Mongol teaming up with Michael Hayes, Devastation Incorporated, and the Freebirds against David Von Erich, Iceman, and Chris Adams. You'll see that next on World Class Championship Wrestling.
All right, so we're going to have a tremendous main event today. Kevin Von Erich versus his opponent from the Freebirds, Terry Gordy, in a fantastic main event, plus an encore match or a rematch with Kamala the Mongol and Michael Hayes. Like, who the hell drew those names out of a hat? Versus David Von Erich, Iceman Parsons, and Chris Adams. I gotta tell you,
that's a Tenru special right there.
Okay, so before they actually showed the match, what did you think he was talking about when he talked about an encore match or a rematch?
Well, I know what each of those things mean individually, but they mean different things, so I didn't know which one it was going to be.
So
you know what's more interesting to talk about than this?
What?
Bill Mercer covering the JFK assassination.
That is more interesting than the intro of this show.
I found somebody on the Twitter machine sent me an interview that Bill Mercer is still with us, by the way. He's 96, maybe he's in his 90s. Still alive and kicking, at least as of last year. He was covering the local news in Dallas in 1963 when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And he was, in fact, the person who told Lee Harvey Oswald that he had been charged with the murder of the president. That is way the fuck more interesting than whether this was an encore or a rematch.
And he's 98 years old.
Yeah.
February 13th, 1926.
Wow.
Like, legit. Like, fuck. I thought I felt old because I turned 40 today. It's like Mercer's 98. And I bet, and I haven't, I don't know about his health issues or anything like that. So maybe he wouldn't be able to really do this anyway. But I'd rather him fucking doing commentary on WWE Today instead of Michael Cole.
Yeah, that's an easy pick right there.
Yeah. All right. So we go to commercial, we come back, and then we have the match. And it turns out it is an encore of a match from August. Kamala the Mongol and Michael Hayes with General Skandor Akbar and Friday versus David Von Erich, Iceman King Parsons, and Chris Adams. This was taped at the Will Rogers Coliseum in August, which I'm presuming aired on the 2-hour championship sports show that we don't see because this isn't what WWE uploaded to the cock. Join in progress with Mark Lawrence on commentary. And remember how we talk in Mid-South about how Chip Kessler is going to be the announcer for the last year or so of Smoky Mountain? Mark Lawrence is going to take over commentary from Bill Mercer in a couple of years when Mercer leaves with what's his name? Ken Mantell.
I may quit the show then.
I think I will walk out with you.
I could not find any record of a card at the Will Rogers Memorial Coliseum on August 23rd, 1983. So I'm taking their word for it.
It's possible that they lied.
Wrestling promoters lie? Who ever heard of such a thing?
You know, I will say that, first of all, this fucking match went way too long. And we'll get to that in a minute. But I fucking loved Michael Hayes and Kamala's interaction. So,
yes,
if this was 2024, this would not happen because, first of all, the character of Kamala would not be allowed on national television in 2024.
No.
But so Kamala has always been a singles wrestler because he's a savage. He doesn't understand our ways. He does not understand a tag team match. So Michael Hayes is trying to tag out to Kamala. And Kamala, first he is offended because he thinks Michael Hayes just hit him. So he's going after Michael Hayes and needs to be calmed down. It's like, and then he thinks like, oh, this is a game. We're just, each other. And Michael Hayes keeps tagging him in, and then Kamala keeps tagging him back in. And it's like, the whole time, it's just hilarious. And I'm like, why aren't they trying to tag the Mongol? Like, the Mongol's just standing there. And Hayes is, like, losing his shit because Kamala's not getting it, and he's got to get in the ring and wrestle. And it was just so fucking fun. It was so 1980s pro wrestling, and it was so fucking amazing.
I wrote, why doesn't Hayes just tag the Mongol who presumably knows what's going on? And then under that, I wrote, right after I wrote that, Hayes figured it out.
Then Mark Lawrence, being the great ring announcer and commentator he is, tells us that this has been going on for over 20 minutes. And seconds later, the ring announcer does the 5-minute call.
Wrestling people are not good at estimating times. I've had I don't know, maybe it's just like typical wrestler exaggeration, but like I've, watched shoot interviews and stuff, and I've been like, yeah, we went 30 minutes, and like I've seen that match. I watched it with a stopwatch. It was 11 minutes.
Fucking Rock in his book, and now mind you, there were a lot of issues with that book, but the Rock in his book talked about all these matches going 30, 40 minutes, and they really went like 12 minutes.
The best part of that book was him explaining in pretty significant detail about losing his virginity, which I was very amusing to show people when I had that book in 8th grade.
I just remember him claiming that he tried to do amateur wrestling, and on the first day he gave a state champion amateur wrestler a belly-to-belly suplex, and then he quit and walked off the mat because it was boring.
Yeah. That book might be more full of shit than Hogan's.
Quite possibly. By the way, Mark Lawrence, he did catch himself because later on they did the 10-minute call, and he said, "Oh, it's only been 10 minutes. It feels like they've been wrestling for over an hour."
I bet.
David got on the claw, which they should not have aired this match because in October 1983, Kamala's afraid of the claw because Kevin Von Erich put it on him in a match recently. In August of 1983, David Von Erich put the claw on Kamala, and Kamala did not seem to care all that much. Like, he cared, but it wasn't the giant freak out that he's now having with David's or with Kevin's version of the Claw.
I cannot believe that. Well, maybe Kevin's is better than David's. I've been a big proponent of Kevin being better than David. Maybe he also does the Claw better.
By the way, I was reading the '84 Observer Yearbook, and apparently David is more of a draw on his own outside of the Dallas territory, and he's also considered a lot more reliable than Kevin or Kerry. Although, to be fair, as we come to know them later, that's not saying a whole lot.
Yeah. So the biggest question about this match: why was Parsons wearing French flag trunks?
I'll be honest, I was paying zero attention to anybody that was not on the heel team.
Parsons was wearing trunks that clearly were the French tricolor flag.
Maybe he was confused and thought they were the American flag.
Yeah, he just saw red. He just saw red, white, and blue and went with it.
Or maybe he was about to join La Resistance as the founding member. Like, was Rene Dupree even alive at this point?
He might have been. Oh, no, because he was 19 in like 2003. He might have been a fetus at this point.
Rene Dupree was born December 15th, 1983. So he is not alive for 6 more weeks, or actually 3 months when this match happened, or 4 months when this match happened.
Wow.
By the way, David jumped up in the air, and Lawrence exclaimed that David jumped into the air with ecstasy, which might explain why we're on David Death Watch if he's jumping in the air with ecstasy. This match never ended, and I remember listening to Cornette talk about these 2-hour championship wrestling shows because there weren't that many wrestlers in the Dallas territory, and they still had to do these 2-hour fucking shows, that these matches would just be booked to go on forever. And that's what was happening here. This fucking match went on for days. And then Adams pinned Mongol after Adams pinned the Mongol after he gave Michael Hayes a super kick.
Yes, that is what happened. So I think what happened was that Adams had a cover on the Mongol, and Hayes tried to drop an elbow on Adams, and Adams moved, so Hayes elbow dropped the Mongol. And then Adams super kicked Hayes and pinned Mongol. I watched this back way too many times, and I think the best I can figure out, that was what happened.
So we go back to the Sportatorium for the American champion, Jim Garvin, with, and I quote, Sunshine 1 and Sunshine 2, because we still don't have a name for Precious yet, so we're just coming up with random nicknames for her, versus the Masked Avenger. Now,
who was not Chris Candido, who would have been 11 years old and in New Jersey.
Yes, and Chris Candido, he's from New Jersey. He would never break the rules or anything.
Absolutely not.
So I'm not sure if drunk Mark Lawrence was out on a bender or something, because he's not on the show this week. But I did note that the new ring announcer had a really nasty bump on his forehead. It probably wasn't that noticeable on a 19-inch floor TV back in 1983, but on a giant ass 60-inch flat screen, it stood out like a sore thumb.
I wrote, who the fuck is this ring announcer? Did Mark Lawrence finally go to rehab? And also, I was again watching this on an iPad, so I didn't notice the ring announcer's head welt.
Now, you might be wondering, fans, who the Masked Avenger is. Now, you might be surprised to hear that the man who was the size of Chris Adams, was the shape of Chris Adams, moved around the ring and stood like Chris Adams, and did a super kick like Chris Adams, was in fact Chris Adams.
Really? Never would have guessed.
Yeah. And the match was over pretty much as soon as it started. Adams hit the super kick, got the pin, unmasked, and he picked up the win over the American champion. And to quote Mercer, Adams put on a mask, tights, and a shirt to deceive Jim Garvin here this week.
It's elaborate. This was like a
Yes.
minute and 20 seconds, by the way. This was nothing match.
I didn't even think it went that long. I will say, like, I like these gimmicks, even though, like, there could not have been a single person in that arena who did not know who the Masked Avenger was. And
Yeah.
we're going to go backstage for a Bill Mercer interview with Chris Adams. Unfortunately, Bill Rathke is not in the shower for this one. Or if he is, they decided to not do the interview in front of the shower this week.
Man, what a surprise. You had me fooled. Here it is, Chris Adams, not the Masked Avenger, huh?
Yep. Did you see that, Bill?
Oh, that was
I
tremendous.
beat him. Okay, I used a trick. But you know what? I beat him. Right now, I could be the American heavyweight champion. But, he wouldn't fight me. He didn't know it was me. I tricked him, okay? So, listen, Garvin, I've been after you for weeks. Remember the time when I wrestled you? Okay, I held you to a draw, and there you were, squirming in the corner saying, this is too hard, I can't take this anymore. Well, listen, I've been trying to get you into the ring ever since then. You haven't done it to me, so I had to revert to this, okay? I got you in the ring, I beat you. I know I can beat you, you know I can beat you, and now everybody knows I can beat you, so it's only a matter of time, surely. Now, I get my chance at the American heavyweight title belt.
You know, you bruised his ego, you battered his body that time you drew him. Now I think you're going to embarrass him again because he finds out you really beat him. What's he going to do? Is he going to run and hide? Can he run and hide from you?
Hey, listen, if he runs and hides, okay, I've used one trick. I've got plenty more tricks.
Yeah.
I'm after that man, and I'm going to get him.
For the American Championship.
For the American Championship. That is my #1 goal in my life right now.
As Chris Adams.
As Chris Adams.
Not the Masked Avenger.
Right, Bill.
Chris Adams. Good luck, Chris.
Thank you.
So, if the Masked Avenger got the pin in a non-title match over the champion, why wouldn't the Masked Avenger be the one getting a title shot?
Maybe the world-class board is not as fucking convoluted as the Mid-South board.
The World Class Board of Directors, which is located in Seattle, is not as convoluted, I guess.
There you go.
Do you think Fritz von Erich has to go meet with them in Seattle to make their decisions?
Almost definitely have to, right?
By the way, here's a question for you. You know, this is kayfabe. We're not supposed to know that Bill Watts is the owner and president of the company. So why is the board of directors keep calling him to come to their meetings to discuss things?
Because he's the expert analyst and beloved former wrestler, trusted local star.
I mean, are they calling Jim Ross, who's a trusted analyst? Are they calling Buddy Nichols from KALB TV in Alexandria, Louisiana? You know, probably not.
That's what they should do. They should Buddy Nichols should be the representative of the Mid-South board.
He is the man who made pro wrestling what it is today.
Indeed.
So by the way, how long did you say this match went? 80 seconds? A minute 20?
Yeah.
How the hell is Chris Adams so sweaty?
Because that mask is hot and there's no AC in the fucking sportatorium.
It's October.
It's fucking Dallas.
Okay, I mean, you were just in Dallas a few days ago. I don't want to break kayfabe or anything, but you were just in Dallas a few days ago. How warm was it in Dallas a few days ago?
Like 90.
Are you serious?
Yes.
What the hell's wrong with you people down there?
Dude, it does not get cool here until like January.
It was last 90 here in like August.
I 90 is a lovely temperate day in Texas.
I'm afraid to ask what the temperature is right now, because right
Uh,
now on my end of the world, it's 42 degrees, and it's a nice, comfortable 42 degrees.
Hold on, let me. It's at 8:15 p.m. It is 74 degrees.
That that is at least 10 degrees more than today's high.
I don't even know what the high was today. I assume it was in the 90s.
I could not live in, for many reasons, I could not live there.
When
Let me
I
see, tomorrow.
first moved to Texas about 9 years ago, we moved right at the end of July, and it was
Mhm.
so fucking hot that about the third day here, I was like, oh wow, it's actually not too hot today. And I looked at the temperature, it was 97. I'm like, what the fuck suburb of hell have I moved to?
By the way, today's high was 55. Tomorrow's is going to be 54. However, on Thursday, we are going to creep up to 74. Go figure. I love, just looking at the sunrise, sunset tomorrow. I love going to work before the sunrise and coming home after the sun sets.
Yeah, that's fun. This is a great time of year for me because it's when my seasonal depression and my regular depression merge, and I spend 3 months in bed wishing I was dead.
Are we going to have to start doing a daily podcast?
Uh, Hopefully
I don't know
not.
what uh, I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about, but we'll figure something out.
trying to maintain. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
The superstar Jose Lothario versus Michael Hayes. Hayes was upset at Lothario being called superstar, as the rest of us are. And then I wrote, someone got in the ring to speak Spanish at Jose, and both seemed upset about it.
This was Black Gordman,
Did you
legendary
know
luchador.
did you know who that was before they said who it was?
Maybe I don't know. My brain was in the process of working it out, and then I think they said it.
Well, anyway, Black Gordman was so upset that he kicked Lothario and dropped him with a DDT. Hayes, wants the match to start. And hey, it is not his fault. He did not ask Black Gordman to get in the ring and drop his opponent with a DDT. So of course Hayes wants the match to start because hey, his money is on the line here. He's trying to make money to send home to his family in Georgia. And eventually they do start the match, and Lothario punches him right in the face. Somehow the DDT injured Lothario's shoulder, and I was to the point where it's like, how does that even work? And then I'm like, maybe, like, did he really injure his shoulder here? Maybe I don't think so, but he really sold it. Here the fans were chanting at Hayes to go home, which I assume meant to end the match. So Hayes did, winning with an elbow drop off the top rope, which is not a disqualification in this territory.
I know that this usually doesn't come up in English language sources, but to the best of my knowledge and the best of any information that I have ever come across, Black Gordman was in fact the earliest known practitioner of the move that we know as the DDT.
So not Jake the Snake Roberts.
Not Jake the Snake Roberts. I do believe that Jake. If you believe Jake, which it's Jake Roberts, so you believe at your own risk. He has a plausible story about inventing it independently, and that's certainly possible. But yeah, by all accounts, Black Gordman was the earliest known user of the DDT.
Now, I don't know whether or not he was really injured here or not, but he doesn't wrestle again at least he doesn't have another reported match for an entire month.
Oh, well, maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he fucking separated his shoulder.
But then, oh my God. And I guess we're going to spoil something for about a month from now. He comes back to wrestle somebody named Tonga John. Do you know who Tonga John is?
No idea.
It's a fucking barbarian.
Oh, wow. That's,
Yeah.
wow.
So
he did.
Mm-hmm.
Does he wrestle Black Gordman when he comes back?
Jose Lothario, he has a 6-man tag with him at Thanksgiving Star Wars, and it looks like okay. They wrestle a couple more times. They have a one-on-one match at Christmas Star Wars, and that may be it.
Okay, at least this is leading to something, I guess.
Yeah, they have a few tags, but yeah, it's mostly just that one Christmas Star Wars match. Oh, they do wrestle in Houston as well in December.
Oh, yeah, Houston.
Yeah. Apparently everyone wrestles in fucking Houston, as long as we don't have to watch it on this very television program.
I have to watch Houston every day.
I'm sorry. He does wrestle Gordman a few times in a couple other territories, but yeah, that's about it. Alrighty, so where the hell were we? All right, so it was Terry Funk versus his very capable opponent, the fabulous Kevin Von Erich. And
if
I gotta
only.
say,
I wish it was Terry Funk against Kevin Von Erich.
Did I say
It'd be
Terry
awesome.
Funk?
You said Terry Funk.
That would be weirdly. I don't know. That probably would have been better, but Terry Gordy is a pretty good alternative too.
Yeah,
but it was Terry Gordy versus his very capable opponent, the fabulous Kevin Von Erich. The announcers sure are heavy with the superlatives for the baby faces today, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And then we get some bad news. Not just that David is about to die, but Mike Von Erich is on his way into the territory.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Oh, fuck.
Yeah. I thought that he was brought in as a direct result of David dying, but I looked like, no, his professional debut is on Thanksgiving night.
Oh.
Yeah.
How about that?
Well, then we get, hey, we saved the best for last. The best part of either show this week, Kevin Von Erich put a body scissors on Terry Gordy.
Yes. Oh, this was like the highlight of my whole day on Saturday when I watched this, actually.
This went on for like 5 minutes.
5 minutes. I am not exaggerating. Okay, it drives me crazy. I at various times in my life have gotten really into Harry Potter fan fiction. So I've read like a lot of stories. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I'm sure it's with other genres of fan fiction too, where people will do somebody says something or something happens, and somebody will go, they stared at each other for 5 minutes. No, the fuck they didn't. You have any idea how fucking long 5 minutes is? I dare you to try to look somebody in the face for 5 straight minutes. But when I say Terry Gordy and Kevin Von Erich worked this fucking body scissors for 5 minutes, it was 5 minutes and it was awesome.
I trust the man with the stopwatch. Yeah, so they worked this body scissors, and it was the best thing that I've seen in, days at least. Gordy gets out of it and he starts running the ropes, I guess to build up a head of momentum to leap at Kevin. But Kevin is turning his body, so every time Gordy goes to do something, Kevin's in position to put him back in the body scissors. So Gordy puts on the brakes and grabs the ropes, and eventually he can't help it and he gets caught in the body scissors again. And I was ready to put the world title on these two right now.
Absolutely.
I know the world champion can only be one person, but I wanted both of them to be champion at this point.
This should be the World Championship program. Absolutely.
We do find out, by the way, that we have new American Tag Team Champions, the Super
Oh.
D's from up the north. By the way, how do you tell fans in Dallas someone is a heel without telling them they're a heel? By telling you that they're from the north.
Yeah, that pretty much works in any Southern territory. So what happened? Did they beat Kerry Von Erich and Bruiser Brody? Was that mentioned?
Nope. I did some digging. Brody and Kerry somehow vacated the belts, which I mean, just because, Brody was not going to come in to do a job and Kerry Von Erich wasn't going to do a job. The title was vacated, and I don't even know how. I'm going to assume Cage Match is telling the truth because it's not Wikipedia. They were won in Detroit by Roddy Piper and Bulldog Brower, who then lost them to the Super D's in Indianapolis.
I don't know that I believe that happened.
I mean, I wasn't at either of the matches, so I can't state with any certainty, but this is from Cage Match. That's what they claimed anyway.
Where was Piper in Crockett, right? Yeah, because he has the dog. He has the dog collar match with Greg Valentine at Starrcade.
Maybe he did some shots for what's his name up in Detroit, the Sheik, when they did the angle with Valentine making him deaf.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, they worked Toronto. I guess they got to work Detroit.
So
what was
the finish?
Do you have dates for that?
I mean, I did. Let me go look that up. I want to say it was October of '83. Like it was that kind of thing here. Riveting podcasting here. By the way, Terry Gordy had the match won by reversing a roll up and getting a handful of trunks. However, whatchamacallit, Bronco Lubick meandered out and tattled on Terry Gordy. And the most biased referee in wrestling, David Manning, reversed the decision and gave the match to Kevin Von Erich. He would have given him the belt if he had the chance to. Let's be honest here.
He wanted to, he did.
This is why he's not allowed to to officiate world title matches anymore.
He shouldn't be.
Yeah, it doesn't give an actual date. It just says Bulldog Brower and Roddy Piper won them in October of '83 and lost them in October of '83. And it doesn't look like they had any title defenses either. But I mean, a lot of these old matches, they tend to not all these old shows, they don't tend to have everything 100% correct, but yeah, it just says Brody and Kerry were stripped of the belts at some point in October, won by Brower and Roddy Piper. It's funny because it doesn't even list Bulldog Brower as wrestling since 1982. His last match being defeating Baron Mikel Cicluna by countout in Philadelphia in '82. By the way, future WWF Hall of Famer Baron Mikel Cicluna. Why isn't Bulldog Brower in the WWE Hall of Fame?
I honestly I don't think I could pick Bulldog Bob Brower out of a lineup.
He also beat future WWE Hall of Famer Kurt Hennig. He beat Barry Hart, who was not Brett. It's Barry Horowitz. Stupid Barry Horowitz. He's beaten Baron Mikel Cicluna quite a few times. So he has multiple wins over a WWF Hall of Famer, and he is not in the WWF Hall of Fame.
Travesty.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that just shows that there's some bias in the WWE Hall of Fame.
The hell you say?
don't get too used to the Barbarian here in World Class. He's apparently not here for very long.
The ball bearing.
Yep. Sadly, Paul Jones will not be with him.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yep. So after the match, Gordy went for the thumb, but Kevin moved, so Gordy gave the thumb to the mat. Kevin then tried to injure the thumb, but Gordy got out of the ring and hightailed it. The show ended with a 10-second promo with Kevin saying that if this was a death-style match, he'd have broken Gordy's thumb right off. And then, for some reason, Chris Adams must have been caught sleeping with Ken Mantel's sister, because next week, Chris Adams has to team with John Mantel. But we will see Princess Victoria take on Judy Martin.
Yeah. Well, that'll be something.
Yes. And it's full-size women wrestlers, not the little women.
Not the little midget girl wrestlers?
Yes. Very popular little midget girl wrestlers.
Yeah.
As opposed to the unpopular ones, I guess.
There's a lot of people who are called very popular on these shows that I'm a little dubious about.
I also liked when the jobbers sometimes get introduced as the very capable. It's like, well, I guess they're kind of capable.
You'd hope so.
So that does it for World Class. With the exception of an amazing body scissors, there wasn't much to either of these shows.
No, it's yeah. You didn't miss anything if you didn't see these. Except for you should go watch Kevin Von Erich and Terry Gordy working body scissors for 5 minutes because it's fantastic.
Yep. And if you don't have Peacock, it's okay because you can watch it on YouTube. Just look up WCCW 10/29/83, and it's the main event. So when you fall asleep during the 6-man tag that opens the show, you'll wake up in time for the main event.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. So we somehow managed to do that entire show in about 94 minutes.
Look at us.
Well, I'll be honest, when the Mid-South review went 58 minutes, I was thinking, oh boy, this is going to be one of those shows.
Yeah, we haven't done one of those in a while.
No, we haven't. So, did you watch Bound for Glory at all last night as we're recording?
No, I have not yet. I got home. I had a bit of traveling this weekend, so I got home kind of like right before 7 last night, and then I was just too tired, so I didn't do anything. So today I watched Rampage and Collision, and then I still got 2 days of New Japan to catch up on.
Anything notable happen on Rampage or Collision?
You know, just the typical like pretty enjoyable shows, but nothing particularly newsworthy, no.
Nothing you have to go out of your way to see. So by the way, and you broke the news, and I'm just getting it now. We're breaking news here on the show 2 days after the fact. Vikingo seems to have been injured at the TNA tapings.
That sucks.
Yeah,
he just got back.
Yep. He did a corkscrew to the outside on the Trent 7, and then he got stretchered out.
That really sucks. Hopefully, we can choose to be optimistic and hope that maybe that was an abundance of caution, and I don't know, the swelling will go down. But we want to wish the best to El Hijo del Vikingo.
Yeah, let's see. He tore his meniscus and ruptured a ligament in February, and just returned last month to AAA. And they actually, and I don't know if this was worked fake injury or not, but they did do a spot in the Mike Bailey match where they teased that he hurt his knee.
How was that match? That was like the one thing that I was really kind of interested in.
Oh my God, that match was fucking amazing. Like,
How about that?
If you're someone out there who you find a free stream of Bound for Glory, you need to go give TNA money just for that match. Like, I don't know what TNA sells in their shop. I don't know if they have stickers or whatever, but it's like, if you watch that match for free, you need to go buy a sticker from TNA or something.
We always knew what TNA had at the shop when Don West was in charge of that shit.
Oh my God, I used to love those brown bags.
Good stuff.
Let me see. TNAmerch.com. They're selling a lot of t-shirts, signed photos, DVDs. It looks like, without, digging in too deep, the cheapest thing may be the TNA Wrestling dog tag for $10. If you're going to do that, you might as well just spend $20 on the best of Drew Galloway, Eli Drake, or the TNA Rebellion 2024 DVDs that are now on sale. Let me see. There's got to be something here that's, cheaper than $10.
Or if you're a high roller and you've had a really good year, you can get a Santino Marella jersey for $75.
I thought you were going to bring up the Santino Marella arm sleeve.
I was going to bring that up next.
Yeah. So yeah, go to TNAmerch.com, buy something cheap as a thank you for them putting on that Mike Bailey match. Actually, buy the Bound for Glory 2022 DVD and try to find me in the audience.
Oh.
Yeah. That was the show in Albany. That was a really good show. And it's not to say that last night's show wasn't good on its own, but like TNA really needs to find who the hell they are. And I said that earlier this year when they came back and they did the Hard to Kill show. And because they did like 3 or 4 matches in a row that were all like 4-star matches. But then that was also the show they put the world title on Moose and booked an entire year of angles around Moose being the top heel with his heel group of Eddie Edwards and Kurt Hawkins and Alicia Edwards. And now they have Dirty Dango in it. And it's like, the shows have dropped in overall quality since January. Like, I thought it was just a Slammiversary issue when you put, your 6 top workers in one match, the undercard is going to suffer. Well, Bound for Glory did not put in their top 6 workers in one match, and the undercard suffered anyway.
To be fair, we have been saying for 20 years that TNA needs to figure out who the hell they are.
It's like, I don't even mind like the PCO match, like I do, but I don't, because like it's one match. Like, okay, yeah, like, it can be fun, like in the middle of a serious card. Here's the comedy segment with PCO getting concussions, because concussions are funny. But it's like the rest of the card, and this is no offense to the people in it, but these were just some bad matches. Moose versus Mike Santana, that was not a good, pair. Josh Alexander and Steve Macklin over delivered, I thought. But that I definitely didn't go into that match with high expectations. They did a rematch with Jordan Grace and Masha Slamovich that they did at the Bound for Glory I was at. And the Bound for Glory that I was at, the match was, a 4.5-star match. This match was maybe 3 stars, based on my own personal opinion of it. It just wasn't as good. And plus, by the looks of it, it might have been a loser leaves town match. Plus, like, no matter how popular Joe Hendry is, and honestly, I would put the fucking belt on him, Joe Hendry is not that great of an in-ring worker. And I mean, that's not what you get Joe Hendry for. You're getting Joe Hendry because he's entertaining as fuck and he's over as fuck. But, him versus Nick Nemeth with Frankie Kazarian as the referee was not good, and it's especially not good when your world title match on the biggest show of the year is built around whether the referee is going to cash in his world title match to get a guaranteed title shot.
Poor Kaz, he got screwed.
Yes, he did when Bradshaw came out and knocked his fucking head off. What is the deal? And I mean, who fucking knows? What is the fucking deal with Bradshaw? Like,
I was hoping you were going to tell me.
this has been going on for months across multiple promotions where Bradshaw just comes out and attacks Nick Nemeth's opponents. And
I didn't know that was the pattern.
Yeah. And it's like there's no I mean, I guess saying there's no rhyme or reason. I mean, he's doing it to all of Nick Nemeth's opponents, but there's been no follow-up. There's been no continuation. Like, why is Bradshaw randomly doing this? And why does it only happen every so often? Nick Nemeth wrestles more than once every couple months, but it's only once every couple months that Bradshaw comes out and waylays his opponents.
Remember in February on that New Japan show when they put belts on Matt Riddle and Nick Nemeth, and then what the fuck was that about? Like that meant why did it that was a point. I have certain tweets that I have bookmarked from of my own tweets that I'll refer back to on occasion, and I have one from that just says sometimes Gato just does shit.
Yes, he does. Was Mustafa Ali a champion in New Japan?
No, he's only had 2 matches there. Although I think he's gonna have a rematch with Leo Rush at the show that you're going to in Lowell.
Nice. By the way, and obviously this is going to be an off-air thing. We need to figure out what we're going to do the week of Thanksgiving. Because I mean, we're going to skip. Spoiler alert, we're skipping. Thanksgiving Day. We're not doing a fucking Smoky Mountain show that day. But I'm going to not be home that entire week, so we may have to do some recording, a week plus in advance.
Yeah, I am actually we're staying home and we're gonna host Friendsgiving with some friends, so I'll be around, but we'll no, I was thinking, and this is a conversation that we should have off air, but this is just fucking riveting radio.
Mm-hmm.
Weekend after next, I am gonna be out of pocket, and I was thinking, well, maybe we should record some ahead. And then I thought, well, we can probably just record the shows Monday and Tuesday, and it'll be fine.
And we can figure something out, because I mean, so the weekend of the 9th?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, the show's for the 12th and the 14th. I mean, especially the 14th. We could do that Wednesday night if we need to. But I mean, yeah, even because I don't when are you leaving? Are you leaving the 9th or the 8th, or what are you going that week?
I am gonna be leaving that Thursday, and I think coming home Sunday.
Okay, so yeah,
So
that
if
might
anybody,
be a little difficult to pull off.
if our listener just so happens to be attending the National Federation of the Blind Texas State Convention, be sure to come say hi.
By the way, our listener was so happy that I wrote a book. So
everybody's
shout out
happy
to our
that
listener.
you wrote a book. We're all very proud of you, Aria.
I'm so fucking happy that I got the physical copy sitting next to me. It's just fucking amazing.
That's awesome. Well, the ebook comes out tomorrow, right?
Yes, it does. Or yesterday, as people listening to this. But yeah,
you're right. Okay.
I
pre-ordered it, so by the time you
Good.
hear this, I've already started reading it.
Awesome. I am going to release an actual physical version due to popular demand, and I'm telling people, it's like, I can't imagine anyone wants to actually pay $20 for this book. But I mean, it is a nice size book. It's 420 pages, give or take a page. And, it's good size. So, I mean, hey, if you want to pay $20 for well, that's a hardcover, it's a paperback. But if you want to pay $20 for the physical version of my book, by all means, please do it.
Hard copy is the term you're looking for.
Yep. As of the moment that we're talking, it is not yet available for order, but I'm expecting it to be within the next day in physical, you know, whatchamacallit. And I'm looking up the number of pre-orders I've sold, and I am very content with the number of pre-orders that have gone out or that have been purchased already.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not going to get rich off this fucking book. I'm not quitting my job, but it's really fucking cool that this many people, are interested in, reading what I have to say.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
You worked hard for it. Savor the moment.
I am. I'm going to savor it so much by going to my shoot job tomorrow.
By the way, ohmygodcast.com. By the time you hear this, because I'm actually going to upload it right as soon as we finish recording here. No ECW review, but Ben and I just recorded a bonus show where we reviewed Halloween Havoc 1992, and that's going to be up by the time you're all hearing this.
So that's why you were randomly talking to me about Halloween Havoc 92.
That is why.
All right. Well, so go check out it now is the Halloween Havoc 92 review as part of the Oh My God cast.
Yeah, it's gonna be on the platform that I used, you can mark something like either as a regular episode and do like a season number and an episode number, or you can mark it as a bonus episode. So this will be a bonus episode of the Oh My God cast.
By the way, I just opened up to page 338. Mike Rotunda versus the Iron Sheik on pay-per-view.
In a singles match? When was that?
Yes. Great American Bash 1990.
Oh, that's strange. They met in a tag team match at WrestleMania 1, so that's
Buddy Landell versus Brian Pillman, Iron Sheik versus Captain of the Ship Mike Rotunda, Doug Furnace versus Dutch Mantell, and Harley Race versus Tommy Rich are the first 4 matches of this 1990 pay-per-view.
Do you remember? I can't remember what year this would have been. It would have been the late aughts, I think, when like on Raw they were advertising a show of WrestleMania rematches, and they actually put up the graphic that they were going to have a rematch between Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda and the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkoff, and they actually had them in the ring in fucking their street clothes, and then it ended up being a pretext for an angle of some sort, but that was a very silly thing.
And I could be getting my weird random episode of Raws mixed up, but wasn't that the episode where Trump bought Raw?
I don't think so, because that episode was in like
it was 2009
June?
when Trump bought Raw.
And I think the WrestleMania rematches show was in like February or March. But that is roughly the time period that this would have happened in.
Oh, Lord. So, yeah, we'll get to that when I do the book about reviewing every episode of Raw. That'll be when I hate myself and I'm desperate for money.
I'm not going to read that one. Sorry.
I won't write it, so don't worry. All right, so that's going to do it for this week's show. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Go check out the Oh My God cast. Go buy 40 Years of Pay-Per-View, Book 1, 1985 through 1990. It is an amazing book, if I do say so myself. By the way, one last thing. Do me a favor. If you get it on Kindle Unlimited, and especially if you feel bad about me not getting any royalties, if you think the book sucks, just go to page 1 and flip through to the end, because through Kindle Unlimited, the author gets paid for the number of pages that people read.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But
me neither.
That's how it works. So, like, literally, I'm planning on downloading my own book tomorrow just to flip through to the end and get myself a few whatever royalties I get out of that. But thank you all for listening. I hope you all enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.